Bernie Sanders going all in on his controversial plan to let felons, including terrorists like the Boston bomber, vote from prison. Bernie now taking it even further with these comparisons.
I said that because the right to vote is essential. If you are a citizen, you have the right to vote. And that is a right we must protect because we know the history of this country. We know that women didn't have the right to vote. We know that African Americans didn't have the right to vote.
Sanders is also slamming a Florida bill requiring felons to pay court fees before becoming eligible to vote as, quote, racist and unconstitutional.
Okay, well, we just did what the frustrating thing was yesterday. Those are two different things. What Bernie Sanders is talking about is people in prison being allowed to vote. The thing in Florida is not good. It is a bill that is passed by the House version. The state Senate version is different. It is separate. It is for people who have gotten out of prison, who have paid their debt to society. They are out of prison, and they are trying to put additional constraints on them. That is a separate topic from what Bernie Sanders is talking about. Sorry.
So here's my point to you, which is Bernie Sanders is moving this conversation incrementally. And you don't want to hear it, but I think
that's not true.
it is true.
I'm not going to take a back seat on restoration of felon voting rights. I'm not.
No, you're saying you're right. You agree with it. You agree with felon restoring
felon voting rights once they get out of prison. Of course,
correct.
Yes. I do, but that is not what Bernie Sanders was talking about. That wasn't the initial thing the other day. And him moving the conversation incrementally is to try to save face for what happened the other day, because the entire Democratic Party now is like, whoa, wait, what did he say? I'm going to have to answer for that, and I wonder what Joe Biden will say. I bet he'll have a better answer.
Well, I think he may have a different answer, but I think it's a conversation starter. Boy, everybody's talking about it, Dana. And
when Dana gets that mad,
there's a reason that everybody's talking about it, and you got to say, you know what, Bernie, you have done something here, because lots of people
Let's give Bernie a round of applause. Let the Boston bomber vote. Good job, Bernie. Way to start a conversation.
The mayor of Boston is even like, what is he talking about?
You know what, Bernie should start more conversations.
But I mean, you guys act as if America isn't having this conversation. America isn't.
America's not having that conversation.
They are having this conversation.
I guarantee you.
Think we're talking about
I guarantee you there's no family sitting around the table going like, you know what, the Boston bomber really should vote in the next election. You know what, I think he could run for president. I think Sarnoff would make a great presidential candidate. He could be a progressive candidate.
Well, you can make a caricature, but the real point
I don't have to. You're doing it.
No, I think that, in fact, there's an important point to be made about citizenship. And Bernie, like Earl Warren, the former Chief Justice, all say, you don't base citizenship on who you like or this crime or that crime.
But now you're arguing the point. You weren't arguing the point before. You were trying to switch.
The same point if you open your ears.
Juan, let's argue the point, though, Juan. Do you think the Boston bomber should be able to vote in 2020?
Do I think? I haven't considered except for this.
What do you mean? We've been doing this segment for 2 days.
I don't, because
answer the question, yes or no.
I think that your citizenship rights are not to be revoked because you don't like me. And if you say in jail,
so that's a yes.
Here's the thing.
Can Sarnoff have a gun in prison too? Because that's a Second Amendment right.
No, it's not.
It's a Second Amendment right. Maybe he could have a gun. All inmates have guns.
Here, I just want
2020.
I just want to say, look, 22 states right now will restore felons' voting rights for a period after release. And then you have, in fact, 14 states that say you lose your rights.
All right, Juan,
We're for that.
All right. We've been talking about this for 3 days now. And as you guys know, I spend a lot of time with inmates and I correspond with them regularly. So I've gotten a lot of emails from them in the last 2 days. First of all, they watch this show. They are not all flaming liberals.
Do they like Animals Are Great?
How do they feel about do they like party jokes?
Yes, they love you guys.
Okay.
They shouldn't be watching the 5. That's another right. That should be deprived.
No, let them have cable. Let them have cable.
I want them to watch the 5.
No, we don't need the rating. We're like #1 in the country. We don't need inmates.
CNN gets airports. I want prisons.
They are people too.
There's more of them.
People too. Oh my God. But here's the point: that there's 3 sections of this conversation. There's the violent terrorists, whatever, voting from prison. There's the incarcerated non-violent offenders that really this conversation is about. And there's the post-incarceration, subject to the fines and everything, which is a ridiculous, secondary imprisonment. And my point in bringing that up is that there's a lot of sentiments that in the non-violent realm, you guys, not everyone in there is like the Grim Reaper.
We know. Can I respond to that? I think you're actually addressing the point that Bernie has screwed up so badly. The problem is there's a perception of the left that they are soft on crime. They're anti-law enforcement, let's face it. They were anti-cops, everything. So no one takes it seriously when when Bernie Sanders comes out and says that. It fulfills the stereotype. It's a terrible thing to run on. Whereas if a Republican came up and said, you know, it's time for prison reform, and I'm interested in those nonviolent offenders having the right to vote. Everybody goes, well, it's a Republican. And normally, they're strong on crime, so maybe I'll listen to him. You see, it's a perception issue.
Yeah, I know they want you to tease. Can I just add one other thing?
Yeah, of course.
So Senators Heitkamp and Donnelly, who lost in the midterms, they are Democrats. They are starting a new entity to try to help Democrats talk to people in rural America. Well, guess what? Here's your first lesson. What did Mayor Pete say when he was asked on that same night in the CNN town hall? Do you think that felons get a right to vote, while they're incarcerated? He said no. No. Yeah. That's how you talk to people in America.
In Indiana.
And
yeah.
No.
Well, everywhere, for that matter,
and
except in jail.
We have to address the fact that these guys they're counted in these legislative populations. That's the other thing. It's just not about the vote.
But
it's such a larger
have your freedom taken away from you because you're not allowed movement. Your freedom has been taken away. You cannot leave. Therefore, I don't see the difference between saying that you then also can't vote until you get out.
Exactly, because then I should be able to have my gun, too, right? If I want to have my voting rights, I want to have my gun rights.
You just twist the whole argument.
I didn't twist it. That's called consistency.
You can't even recognize
consistency.
You can't have an honest conversation if you're going to twist it.
Yeah, we're all liars.
Please,
we're not changing the subject. We're not changing the subject.
If you're saying that this is about giving prisoners guns, you understand. You're just twisting the argument.
Jonathan Swift. Read some Jonathan Swift.
It's a logical extension of the argument.
You should read the Constitution because the Constitution says you have the right to vote.